dog crate, move all the things.
Hello, friends. Happy Thursday and welcome back for Tog Talk. As you may already remember, I am Jillian Varney, and today I am here with one of my fellow Summerana instructors, Olguta Goddard. And Olguta, I will let you introduce yourself.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. So I'm Olguta. I'm based out of San Diego, California. Well, Oceanside, kind of northern part of San Diego. And I am a maternity photographer. I've kind of niched down quite a lot over the years. I started photography about 10 years ago, and initially I was kind of shooting anything and everything. But over the years, I've really been drawn to the maternity side of it, and more particularly like fine art, very styled sessions. So that's been really fun to kind of explore and do that exclusively I would say probably the last year for sure, but more so the last 2 years kind of is when I started transitioning. And then just recently I opened up a studio. So now I'm going to be doing a mix of outdoor and indoor. So that's been fun to kind of merge the two worlds and kind of keep it cohesive and, explore a whole new aspect and lots to learn too. So it's been awesome.
That's right. And I actually just recently went through that too, to where I also made that big transition for maternity that I wanted to start also focusing on studio, which now I like, honestly, I'm so part of them. Like, I don't know which one I love more, because I'm sure we can both agree there's something magical about outdoor maternity sessions. But then again, there's something so awesome. And just, I love like the really deep creative feel of being in studio with my maternity sessions too.
Yeah, so. Especially outdoors, and especially more so. I live in a beach town. At the beach, I had the 2 beach sessions the last 2 nights. It just feels like so like loud and chaotic because of all the outside noises, and you're kind of yelling at each other. They can't hear you. They're yelling back, and being able to kind of bring that into like the quiet studio where there's like music playing and there's like snacks and the AC's on. It's definitely a different world, and it's interesting to see kind of that translate into images where moms are like way more relaxed because there's not like a whole crowd staring at them or, whatever the case is. So, yeah, it's definitely been really exciting to get into that side of things.
I couldn't agree with that more. Do you think that that level of privacy is really a great factor for clients feeling more comfortable? And as we all know, the more comfortable they feel, the better the images are probably going to be. And not only that, like, I know that you're in California, but here in Illinois, we have unpredictable weather. Like, I mean, it's like you could be like looking at the forecast and it's like no chance of rain, and it'll start raining within 3 minutes. So that's another component of where I really love that I've started doing more maternity work in studio, because then I have that fallback plan always.
Yeah, that's true. In the past, when we've had, the occasional like random spurt of rain or bad weather, we've had to just quickly reschedule altogether. And that gets really hard, especially when they've booked hair and makeup or they have, other commitments. Or I have a lot of clients who come in from out of town or out of state, fly here on their baby moon, being that we are in, a tourist location. And you can't just like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, or let's meet up next week, because that's often not an option. So yeah, having that studio, at least as a worst case scenario, has been amazing. So I'm excited for that.
I couldn't agree more with that. And that's like really the whole point of our Tog Talk today, guys, is that we would love to share some of our best tips and tricks for hosting a successful maternity session. And especially like Olguta just pointed out, I think that's really important to remember that depending on when you like to shoot your clients, even if they're not traveling, it's very likely that between the two schedules, are you going to be able to reschedule in time before they go into labor? I don't know about you, Olguta, but I'll start out by saying that I like to gear my clients to start shooting, depending on how many pregnancies they've had, obviously, but especially for a second or third time mom, I would love to get them in sooner than later. And I will ask them to come in as early as 28 weeks, depending on their bump. But I also will say that I tend to like a smaller bump lately. I'm getting more into that. I know it's different than what everyone else is doing, but I think that's why I like doing it, because it's not what every other maternity photographer is doing. So
no, I agree with you. It just, they're more comfortable. Like, forget like size of the bump. I mean, pregnancy does such wild things to our bodies. And I've had, clients who inquire, they say, oh, I want to wait until I'm like 39 weeks so I can capture myself in my biggest. I'm like, but do you really? Yes, you might want to capture the big bump, but there's so many other things like
the swelling.
Yeah.
The cankles.
Yeah, there's so much else that goes with that I'd rather liquefy your bump, kind of nudge it out a little bit and create that illusion of a bigger bump than have you be like uncomfortable or like, just in pain or whatever the case might be, or maybe having the baby by that point. So yeah, I am always a 28 to 32 weeks recommendation kind of girl. Funny, I had a client last Wednesday who was 32 weeks and she thought she was like ahead of the game. And we did a studio and outdoor session. And then she messaged me 3 days later that she had had the baby. So obviously total kind of one-off chance. We never could have predicted it. But, all that to show that you just never know when these babies come. So planning for an earlier session is totally okay. And it allows your client to kind of get it out of the way. Now that hard part's over and they can use the images for their baby showers or other things that come along the way. And they're still in a state where they feel, comfortable-ish in their body.
Yeah.
And feel pretty. They don't have that swelling or discomfort just yet.
You hit every point behind it, especially, I don't know about you, Olguta, but like typically my edit lead falls between, meaning from the time my clients actually make their purchase of like their images, my editing lead is between 3 and 6 weeks, depending on the time of year and how busy I am. And I think a lot of us higher end fine art photographers probably fall similar to that because we're not batch editing. It takes a lot more time when we're doing the extensive skin retouching. And as you mentioned, liquefying also it's more editing. So more editing, more time. And I'm curious to ask, what is your edit lead typically?
So mine's closer to 2 weeks usually. So once I say after your session, it'll be about a week until you get your proofing gallery. So I just send out a soft proof gallery. And then from that, they pick their images and it's about another week, 2 weeks past that, depending on.
You're faster than me. No, that's great though. That's amazing. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's more like for me, more than them. I have to if I
just get it done.
Sessions, I have all these clients that are waiting for me. I'd rather my anxiety can't handle sitting on it.
I understand. Here's my tip. I think this is a great conversation because I do feel like we get a lot of pressure from our clients and their expectations for how quickly we deliver. Now, here's my thing. I know I'm a mom, right? I know that I am a special needs parent and I have a little bit more extensive parenting to do than your average parenting. I'm not saying all parents don't work hard because we all do,
sure.
But I just have more on my schedule because of those reasons. And I just know definitively that I'm going to need 3 to 6 weeks. I know that. And for me, I think it's way better business to under promise and over deliver versus the opposite. Yeah. And my biggest advice to everybody is that set realistic expectations ahead of time with your clients. That means you need to put this in writing in your contract. You need to make it loud and clear in writing. You need to make sure to give them this information before they hire you if you're going to have a longer edit lead, because if you do not, it will come back to bite you in the butt. Now, my second part of this is that if you have informed them with the information in writing, then it really falls back to them. It is their responsibility as the consumer and the adult to be reading what they sign and agree to. And with that said, just be real with yourself though, because again, you don't want to set higher expectations than you can meet. And that's where, to me, I'm just going to be very upfront that I have a long edit lead and maybe I'm not the right photographer for you with that said, and that's okay. You can't be offended then if they do move on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the contract, having that is by far the absolute key to a successful. You honestly can't even have the others without having that successful session or successful contract in place, because setting that at ground rules for everything: what they paid, what's included, what your timeline is, the who, what, where, your model release, a COVID waiver. There's so much that goes into it that can kind of domino effect to the end result or how everything else goes from that point forward. And it's so critical for both parties, not just for them, but also for yourself and vice versa. Setting everything out on the table. And like you said, not everyone is our client. And that's totally okay.
Yeah. People really struggle with that though. Yeah. I think that you see that all the time. I see people in the group sometimes and I'm I can't imagine how you get through running a business with this type of anxiety. And I'm not saying that with any type of hate towards it. I mean, genuinely, I feel bad that they have this kind of anxiety because I'll see they're I delivered the gallery and my client never said anything to me. And I'm oh, you guys think about that? I'm it doesn't bother me because then I'll, maybe even a month later, sometimes I'll get a random tag on Facebook with screaming from the mountaintops how much they love their images. So I feel no news is better than bad news.
They would know if they hated them.
Absolutely. Sure. That's how I look at it. I feel anytime there's been a few times, I'm sure all of their careers that we've had somebody come back and have concerns. those, I feel like if they have concerns, they're going to voice them, especially when you're charging a premium price. They're probably going to come discuss it with you. And but like, not only is it important on sessions, but like, I had something happen recently that I want to share with you guys, because I think this is important to really show how important it is to keep records of your conversations with clients and potential clients and model calls. And a lot of people don't even like using the term model call, but for me, I stopped doing newborn photography quite a while ago, several years ago. I recently decided, you know what, I think I like newborns better than I like family. I'd rather do family or not do family than not do newborn. So I decided I will like dive back into it a little bit. And I know you and I are probably the only two maternity photographers that I know that were like, we're not really interested in doing newborn also. Like, it's not our jam.
Not in my studio.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where I'm like, I decided though that I would start dabbling in it again. Like, that was a choice I made this year.
Awesome.
And I did a model call. And of course, one of my photographer friends recommended one of their family members who had just had a baby. And this is a very good friend of mine. So I'm like, yeah, that'll probably work great. You know, I know her. I know a couple of her family members. They've been great. So sure. I had a conversation with the mom. The baby was already 6 days old. And I said, well, we need to get her in right away then. You know, we're almost to the end of that cycle. I explained everything in writing. I said anything, and very specifically, I'm very direct with like my words and my intentions behind my words. I said anything that I edit and use in my portfolio, you will receive.
Right.
To cut the story short, the session was god awful. The baby, they did not disclose to me that the baby had a god awful rash around the mouth. And I mean, like, from the chin to the nose. It was horrible. Made it very difficult and extensive editing to fix all of it. She also was cluster feeding. They did not disclose that to me. And again, and now that it even made me learn, like, I should have asked those questions. I should have asked, are there any rashes?
Contract, sometimes you'll read a sign or you're like, really? But it's because they happen, and you got to build on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the only question I really asked was about her sleeping. Is she sleeping well? Which I do feel like they weren't quite honest about that either, because she would not sleep. Like, I was there for almost 4 hours and she would not go to sleep. So, which it was the cluster feeding. I'm not mad at them for that. They can't help that. But regardless, like, it was a god awful session. I can easily say that. It was my first session back trying newborn. I did disclose to them that this is practice for me. So really, as far as I was concerned, there was one usable image out of them. And normally, I don't know about you, but like a full session in an hour, I normally will walk away with like 400 images minimum to cull through. Yeah. This one, including every single image that I shot, there was only 75 to even look through. So just, and the session was 4 times longer than what my sessions normally are. So to give you relevant information of like how awful this session actually was. Mm-hmm. Recently now, she came back in a mom's group when somebody had referred me about milk baths. Somebody was asking about it. Another mom recommended me, so I posted below. She was like, well, I never received the images from so-and-so's newborn session. Yeah, and she really, though, painted the picture as if like she was a paying client. And she had also done another free session, by the way, with another photographer, which I knew had delivered her over 100 images. So right after mine. So I professionally responded, and I absolutely included the screenshots of our conversations to defend myself, because I'm to the point to where I'm like, small business or not, I am no longer going to let people slander me. And yes, you should absolutely put customer service forth. That doesn't mean letting people slander you publicly and misrepresent the situation. And I let everybody see, even down to where she was like arguing about the time she would arrive. We don't like to get up early, she told me. And life experience for myself. I have not had that bad of an experience in quite a while. But yeah, I defended myself. And that's where I think that should be a lesson. Let me give you a lesson. Let me go through the bad experience to help you. Don't ever go into anything, even a model call, without making sure you set very strict expectations, because that's where I was able to defend my name publicly and show, no, I was honest with what I did. I delivered exactly the one image that I found usable. I gave it to you. Like, I was honest about everything in my messages. I was direct. My wording was clear. So that's where I think it's so important that you're doing that for yourself, because that's the only way in those bad situations that you can honestly show the public like what actually happened and what was actually promised. And it's
more important for model sessions to have contracts, just because there's no, they don't have any specific buy-in. Oftentimes they're truly free. And so having that neatly written out just kind of gets everybody up on the good foot.
Yeah. Don't wait until it's a problem to be like, oh, I should have used the contract or had this in writing. That's the point of that whole spiel, guys.
And it's with maternity, for me personally, the liability portion is like my absolute most important part of my contract. Like, forget all like the logistics with the photos and how many and when they'll be delivered. Like, goodness forbid if something happens and you have a liability issue on your hand. I mean, I hope that we're all carrying, liability insurance and business insurance, but with maternity, there's just so much that can happen, and almost kind of feels like you're dealing with a ticking time bomb in a way. There's 2 lives you're protecting, and so having that liability waiver in place in your contract is absolutely critical for these kind of
It's imperative.
Yeah, I mean, we're not that we're taking crazy risks or anything. I'm certainly more careful with my moms than they are up to for being most of the time. Like, I had my mom last night. I was like, oh, I can go deeper into the ocean. I'm like, absolutely not. You'll just sit there on your knees.
We're good.
And waves come to you. Yeah. But yeah, having a liability clause in your contract is so critical especially for maternity.
Yeah, I could not agree more with that. And here's the thing, guys, like, honestly, like, and sometimes it hurts to hear it, but there's no excuse for not having insurance when you're a legitimate business. There's really not. It's very affordable. I have a very large policy. I carry about 4 times the coverage than most photographers do. And I think it's like $58 a month.
Yeah,
and
totally worth it. Yeah, I'm at $2 million myself. It's changed compared to the potential of risking it all. And obviously even furthermore, like, hurting someone. I mean, we just got it.
And things happen, like, and that's the biggest thing, that you never can anticipate those occurrences, and hopefully you never have to experience them. But when you do, like, just think about it like this. And as I always talk about in Tog Talk, your insurance is a straight insurance, just a tax deduction. So it's going to help you in the long run. You can either give that money directly to the IRS, or you can be covered and have insurance. It's really up to you. So,
right.
But I definitely think that it is absolutely worthwhile. And then, Olguta, would you mind telling everybody what time of day you like to shoot your beach sessions?
So beach session. Oh, sorry, my phone got disconnected. Beach sessions are always an hour before sunset. So like right now, our sunset's 8 o'clock. We're meeting at 7 o'clock. And I usually kind of set it at 7 or exactly 1 hour before. But what I often do is I'll watch our surf cams. Kind of lucky in that sense on the coastal cities that basically every beach has a surf cam set up. So I can see the clouds rolling in. And if I see that it's like super dense, like the last few nights we've had just terrible cloud coverage, I'll move up the session if we have to. But I always start off an hour before, though my beach sessions are only 45 minutes because that light is just so darn harsh. We still meet an hour beforehand. It allows us to kind of slowly walk to our spot, slowly, kind of chit chat. You don't have that rush. And then for woodsy sessions, I typically do an hour and a half, simply because the trees kind of filter in that light so much sooner. But yeah, I'm specific. I'm a golden hour type of girl, not because I can't. I've done lots of sessions at 12 and 1, not by choice, more of a necessity. But you're just going to allow yourself the opportunity to give your clients consistent style. Can I press a button and take pictures of you at noon? Sure. But it's not going to be the images that you see in my portfolio.
Bingo. I'm so glad you said that, because that's literally what I will write out to my clients when they challenge me on the time of day, which I'm sure we all get pushback on it because they don't understand.
And when sunset is 8 o'clock, and I think in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken, it's even later. So starting a session at 7 when you have, an 18-month-old with them does get tricky.
Yes.
Be to do it at 6. And then obviously the argument is that it's too early. Yes, I know it's early for me too. But I want, this is an investment. And I feel like anyone can do anything for 15 minutes or 45 minutes. Anyone can do anything once. So if it means waking up a little bit early or staying up a little bit late, like, you're paying for $1,000. Like, I want these images to look like the reason you hired me, not at noon for convenience.
And that's where I think that a lot of people, I know that I've had photographer friends reach out to me and like discuss this with me, where they've gotten so much pushback that they feel pressured to do whatever time of day the parents do. And I'm like, but here's the thing, it's your business. Yes, I understand that they are hiring you, but you do not work for them. You work for yourself. You set your business standards, you set your hours of availability. And that means if you don't want to shoot at noon, like I won't, like, just like you said, I think that anybody who is an experienced photographer knows how to shoot in harsh light. But the fact of the matter is that it's not going to be the representation of what they're seeing in your portfolio. And if you're going to do it, I don't recommend doing it. Personally, I'm like, nope, I play hardball. Maybe I'm not the photographer for you. I am not scared of people not hiring me. I'm just not scared of it. But if you are, that's okay. And I just say that you, again, going back to contract, communication, they're hiring you for your expertise. So you need to give them your expertise, and you need to set those expectations. You need to make sure they understand this will not look like my golden hour.
Yep.
Because that's all you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now you also do a client closet. And I know that we've talked about this on Tog Talk before, but maybe you could recap a little bit and explain to them how you do it. Because I know that we do it a little different. I do a dress consult ahead of time. I prefer to do it in person with them, but if they prefer to do it virtually, that's okay. And now I believe that you pick for them. Is that correct?
I don't pick for them, but I do have an online gown gallery that they pick from, and I just bring those to the session. So we don't do a consult. We don't meet up ahead of time and play dress up. And as much as I would want that, between COVID and everything else, life schedule, don't have the extra time to meet up with them and play dress up. And then now I have I have all these dresses that are technically dirty. You know, I just don't want to take that chance, especially with maternity. So I don't. And it's never been an issue. I think maybe twice in my entire career, I've had a mom that's like, look, I'm a size double H bra. And I'm just concerned. I'm like, okay, you and me both. Like, let's meet. And absolutely, in those cases, I will. Or if there is a size or a fit concern, I absolutely will. And interestingly enough, in both of those cases, it wasn't an issue. We found the gowns that they initially chose were fine, because I stock up in high-end gowns that are stretchy, that can accommodate.
Yeah, they're very sizable.
Exactly. And I oftentimes will buy extra large dresses so I can clip them in the back. And I've shot same gown and a size 24 mom and a size 0 mom. And it looks like a custom fit on both because you clip the back. No one's shooting the butt. So we can put all clips down the back similar to how they fit out.
Yep. Right? $10 on Amazon, folks. Like, just go get your garment clips. They're so worth it.
Oh my God. Let me grab it.
Yeah, I think that, and this is something I think, especially if you are just starting to build your client closet. Obviously, Olguta and I can both speak from experience. It's not cheap to have a client closet. And not only do you have to anticipate the cost of actually purchasing the gown, as Olguta mentioned, you have cleaning fees to keep maintenance your gowns. And then here's another kicker that people don't think about. You need the space to house your gowns.
When I was looking for my studio, that was kind of part of it. The bigger part of it. I mean, like, yes, I need some space for my wall backdrops, but I need room to store, going on 250 gowns. It's so worth it. I mean, you're providing them a completely unique experience. Like, when else are you going to wear a sequin gown in the ocean, or ball gown just because you can? So anyways, it's fun to have that closet. Going back to the clips, this is what I use. They're 59 cents from Home Depot, and they will change your life. They're rubber tips, so they don't damage any of your gowns. They're teeny tiny, and they're so strong. And I can most often just one gets away. You get away with one clip on the gown, and you get a perfect fit. So these ones are incredible.
That's exactly what I use, though. It's lifesaver.
Yes. But yeah, so my client fit, everything's online. I always tell them they're all very stretchy to accommodate a wide range. Pick based off of what you're interested in. I'm happy to provide you with a recommended list of gowns. If you send me like a current picture, I kind of put together a style guide for them. But otherwise, we don't meet up. Everything's just brought on location, and that's worked out just fine.
And I think a lot of people work like that, Olguta. And honestly, yes, it is actually much more cost efficient for yourself not to do those things. So I definitely do plan on doing that as well in the future. I've been saying that for like 4 years. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely going to start shooting on my gowns. It's like I'm one of those things I always keep putting it to the back of my list. But for now, I do like doing it. But I agree. It is timely. It takes away a lot of time. I mean, I'm lucky enough. I live 8 minutes away from my studio. So it's pretty easy for me to run really quick there. Plus, like, I've cut down to where I will only take one session a week now, and that's it.
Oh, no.
So yeah, I'm like, I don't want to burn out. I love what I do, and I want to continue to love what I do. So I knew that that's something that I needed to change for this year. At least that's what I'm doing. I'm just one session a week. I'm a little flexible. I'm not going to say I never shoot more than one a week, but that's like my ideal number at least. Really quick, I just want to ask our viewers, so far, if you have any questions that you would like to ask Olguta or I, please feel free to post them down in the comments, and we're happy to answer them. We're going to be going a few more minutes. But yeah, we would love to answer your questions for you and help you have a successful maternity session. And then with that said, what else would you like to recommend to our viewers?
So one thing that I found has been really helpful, especially when you have families or little ones, husbands included with sessions. I don't know about everybody else, but I typically do 3 to 4 gowns per session, simply because I get bored shooting the same gown for 45 minutes. I'm a very quick shooter. I move quick, I talk quick, and I shoot quick. So I'm like, I don't want to see the same gown for that long. But it provides my clients with a little bit more variety in their sessions, and it kind of changes it up. We move locations and we change gowns as we go. But I always love suggesting to them, and most moms do this, is we start off with their favorite gown, and that's the gown we do our family photos with. So that's where we have the kid who's fresh out of the car and generally pretty happy. That's where dad's still, okay to be there. We knock all those out. And then if and when anybody else wants to kind of pop in with the additional looks, they can pop in as they wish. But at least we know straight off the bat, we have a beautiful family photo. We have photo of mom and the kids, mom and the hubby. All the various combinations are out of the way. If the little ones get dirty, especially at the beach, if they get wet, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. We've gotten all the key photos out of the way. And it kind of, oftentimes I find it allows them to kind of take that sigh of relief. Okay, the kid has participated. Everyone's happy still. No one's yet bored. And it takes that pressure off of everybody.
I think that's so important. Yeah, it's super. No, because you're right. Like, how many times have you had a client who has other children that they are just entirely stressed out because of the other children at the session? And that's where, if you have the capability too, one suggestion I may make is that I always give the option of, if you don't want to start with yours, because I agree. That's what I always say. I'm like, pick what part of the session is most important to you, and let's start with that. Yeah. And if it involves children, you should probably do that first. Yeah. The other alternative that I will suggest, if it's plausible at least, is that have dad come later. Let's get certain shots out of the way, and then we'll have them meet or start with them and then leave with them, because I do think having them there is very distracting.
Yeah, everyone's off the hook. Dad can take the kids to play. Dad can take the kids down, for a walk, and then mom can relax. And I do that. Oftentimes, my images with families are a bit more kind of posed and formal. Everyone look here and smile, because that's generally the kind of shot that mom wants. Whereas my solo mom shots are like way more artistic. So it gives mom even more variety when you have like all these eyes staring at her and like kids talking to her, and that stress point is gone. It makes it easy for everyone to kind of move on and take a breather going forward. Oh, I think we lost Jillian. The other thing too that helps on location with them, especially with little ones, is having mom bring a snack, bring water, and a child to take a break if they need to. I've had kids who had to take a break on our gown. Kind of shift plans for the first gown, they were just having a meltdown. Okay, let's go ahead and start with your photos. We'll kind of come back around and do this gown at the end. And by the end, I'm no longer a stranger. They're more comfortable with the environment. And it turns out that doing that family shot at the end is way better, especially for clients that drive, have a long drive. You can't expect kids to be on the road for 2 hours and then boom, be ready for photos. So sometimes you do have to kind of assess the situation. And if you find that everyone's like stressed from being in the car and the kids are antsy, go ahead and do all those family photos at the end and let everyone get a quick walk in and get their wiggles out beforehand.
I agree with everything you just said. It is really important, because I'm sure all of us can agree, pushing a child to cooperate makes the situation worse. It's not going to work.
Yeah. And more than anything, that'll stress mom out. If the child is, whining or crying and you are having to, kind of navigate that, or you're waiting on the child to suddenly cooperate, that's not going to happen. What that's going to do is cause mom to sit there, look at her clock. She's, seeing lights fading. It's still having, it's okay. Let that be. Move. Go take a walk. Go ahead and walk to that tree. Pick mom a flower. Bring it back. Give them something to do. Get them out of mom's hair too. Get dad away from mom. And then that allows you to, not waste your time in a sense. Fortunately, with having, or with doing outdoor sessions, Mother Nature is boss. And as much as I have the patience to sit here and kind of guide this child through a tantrum or whatever they might be experiencing. Unfortunately, sunset's in 45 minutes now, and we're kind of like watching the sun quickly go down. So you have to be willing to shift gears if need to, or if the kid may not want to be in photos whatsoever. That's okay. We tried. They're welcome to pop in at any other given point. Let's go ahead and move on to mom. And whenever the child is up for it, we'll see if we can get mom to give them a hug at least. And that way you kind of still capture that moment without the expectation of them looking at the camera and smiling perfectly. Because so often you just don't get those.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But you're so right though. And this goes right back to what we were talking about a little bit ago, where they are hiring you for your expertise. Mm-hmm. This is part of it, guys. So you cannot be afraid to guide your clients. Yeah, but you have to find the confidence to be able to steer the session. Like, you're in charge. Don't let clients come in thinking that they're running the session, because that's not the case. You're running the session, and you have to try to push on, because if not, your son's gone, like Olguta mentioned, and then what? Then you're going to be in a worse situation of explaining why you don't have any images in your gallery to choose from. So I couldn't agree more with that. We did get some questions a few moments ago, and one of them is, I think that we both can agree on this answer already. Well, I won't speak for Olguta, but I can say my favorite place to get dresses from for my maternity sessions is hands down So Trendy. I love the quality of them. I think that the pricing for the quality is very reasonable. I've bought from a lot of other vendors where, yeah, the dresses were less expensive, but it showed, because they fell apart and the seams were ripping after just a few sessions. And
for clients, like, their confidence when they're wearing something they're having to constantly like pull out and pull up and pull down, like, that shows is them wearing something that's like fits them well and made for a pregnant body.
Yeah.
And it's size fits all, because those gowns just don't work out as much as I would love them to be. Don't. So yeah, it's so cool to buy a high-end brand. So Trendy is definitely my top go-to as well.
Yeah,
because
no question. Absolutely. And then let me see. That is a great question. Ashley asked about recommendations for a contract. So let's start off here. You have to understand that state laws vary. So whether it be taxes are different every state. It just from the fact that, like, for instance, Illinois considers digital products non-tangible, meaning I don't have to charge sales tax on them. You go to Wisconsin, right over the border, and that might be different. Very well could be. So every single state's laws and regulations are different. Whether you need to be licensed in one city in the state of Illinois is different. Yeah. So all of these things are very important. So you need to start with making sure that you're researching your local laws and requirements to see what type of license that you need. There's actually no such thing. I see a lot of photographers in the state of Illinois post that they're licensed, and I would love to understand what they mean, because there is no such thing as a license for business for a photographer. You still have like your regular I'm in business license. You do not have a specific license for photography though. And so this is where you need to start there. And then I know Law Tog is one that offers contracts.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that both of those are, Law Tog, or, there's oftentimes you'll see them even on Etsy. I know Squeegee has a free one too. The issue is you're only protected to the extent of your contract. So yes, you can type up any and everything you want, but ultimately, does that hold up in court? Does that hold up so you can other contract. Kind of what I did, I kind of pieced. I had a lawyer take a look at it that was specific to my state. For the most part, to be honest, it was pretty solid. It was a few little things that verbiage, calling your retainer, not a deposit.
First deposit, yeah. And that's pretty broad. I would say most states, and again, this is specific to your states, but most states, you cannot legally hold a deposit if no services are rendered, meaning if they blow you off and do not show up to your session, you are out that money. You must legally return it.
Yeah, in California, gift certificates can never expire. I know other states are different. So you have to look at the specifics for your state to make sure that if and when something does happen, that you are protected and you don't have, little holes that your clients can jump through to, prove their case. The contract portion is so critical.
Yeah. And if you're using services like Square, for instance, for processing, I'm going to mention one time in the, I think almost 6 years that I've used Square, I did have a chargeback on a retainer. And guess what, guys? I challenged it and I won. And they gave me my money back because I had an appropriate contract in place that I could provide, and it had the appropriate verbiage of retainer, meaning that you are paying for my time, whether you're there or not. You have purchased my time. that we have just agreed upon. So if I had not, and I used the verbiage deposit, I would have not been able to get that money back. So it's a very good question. Just make sure. And I also want to say, I think Olguta is spot on. If you can make sure to have a lawyer overlook it, that is your best chance of making sure you are covered, because state laws are difficult.
Yeah, it is an added cost and it's not cheap, but neither is this entire industry. So it's just another cost of business. It's a tax write-off, but at least you know that you're not just handing out a random piece of paper. If you can type up whatever you want, but if it doesn't hold up in court, it's basically useless and you may as well just not have done it. So that part is important.
Absolutely. Guys, we have a few more minutes left. So if you have any additional questions, now is your chance to ask. And Olguta, is there anything else that you want to share? I feel like we've really covered so many good instances of what you can run into in a session. But overall, maybe we could talk about some ways that you can make a mother, which anyone who's been pregnant, we're going to relate to this. You feel self-conscious when you're pregnant. Your body's changing, your skin's changing, your hair's changing. Everything about our individuality has changed all of a sudden. And I think that could really throw people off, and their self-confidence in their session could be affected by that. So what are your key components to kind of helping your client get over that little hurdle?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, we talk about it, just simply asking them, are there any, things, any features you like to highlight or hide? And that's usually where you get the moms that are like, oh, I hate my arms or my double chin. Yeah, exactly. Like
the number one request. Could you agree? Right. Number one request, mom arms.
Yeah, and that's totally okay. And that's for me, because I am such an extensive retoucher. I'm like, don't worry, I got you. I will. And I don't have any particular shame in this. I will tell them, we will make you the best version of yourself. And not because you or anyone needs it, but because, I've been there. I know what pregnancy does to our bodies. I've gained 50 pounds with each of mine. And the version of you at 37 weeks is not the version of you before you were pregnant. And so all of that is baby. All of that is so temporary in your life. And I don't want someone to have this giant, wall art of them with 50 pounds on their body. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's a mental component to pregnancy more so than physical, I feel like. And I just don't want that to be what they forever remember. So if they want me to, obviously I don't just go in and liquefy them without asking or having that conversation. But 99.9% of the time, there's always that's the first thing they bring up is I'm really concerned. I hate my legs. I hate my ankles. I am swollen. Can you fix this or that? And it's always a yes.
Well, even your nose gets larger during pregnancy. I mean, this is like scientifically proven that your appendages grow. Your feet get larger, your hands, your nose, they get larger during pregnancy. So all of those things, I mean, it really does. It all goes into those factors. And I have a question for you about that though, because like here's one thing that I have started doing again from an experience that I had early on in my career liquefying. I now make my clients put it in writing every single time. I actually make them call out their request in writing. 2 reasons. One, I did a session for a friend of mine once, and the entire session she complained about her mom arms, like the entire session, like obsessively complained about them. So I thought that like she wants me to slim her arms out. She was so offended, guys. She was so offended, and I really hurt her feelings. And it was like a huge it was very early in my career, but it was a learning lesson for me. And I'm glad that it happened early in my career though, that I'm like, oh, whoa, okay. She did not want that. I totally read all of that wrong. She was self-criticizing. I thought so. I was wrong. So that's the first reason. Second reason is that I also think that when I am doing the extra work for liquefying and editing, I do not want to put the work forward and then have somebody come back and be like, oh, actually, you know what? Can you do this instead? So I like to put it in writing. So I have, again, something to refer back to. Be like, well, this was your request. So this is why I did it. And maybe that is extensive for me to do, but I always feel like I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I'd like to have it in writing.
So let me ask you, do you find that, so I have a girlfriend that does something similar. When she sends out her gallery, she more or less asks, let me know what requests you have for your images in terms of like liquefying. Do you find that kind of opens up the floodgates? Because she has had a client that literally took her like a screenshot of her image and like, so I want my jawline here. I want this down, this up, this in, this out. And it became this huge thing, but essentially she kind of invited all that. And that's kind of what I've always been afraid to do by opening up that conversation, during the session. If they say, oh, like, I don't want to like show the high slicks. Right. I hate legs. I tell them, you know what, I can easily
got you.
Yeah, I got you. So and so I always felt that kind of having that conversation mid-session is like good enough, but maybe you're onto something. Do you find that it opens up floodgates?
It can. And I think that that's where being direct with your verbiage is very important. I think that verbiage goes very far, and the way you word things with your clients is very important. And perception is also important. So usually what I do is, because I do an immediate gallery reveal right after the session, like right there. And then I'm like, let's go through, this is your sales meeting. When I'm doing that, that's when I kind of discuss things with them. And I think it's very helpful, especially, I don't know about you, but I've noticed since I have raised my prices that I get a lot of older first-time moms that they're probably closer to 40, which they would even consider that geriatric now in this day of age. That's what they consider that. So with that said, I can tell sometimes that those clients seem to be a little bit harder on themselves than my younger first-time moms. And I think it's helpful, though, that I'm there to say, oh, well, don't worry, I can liquefy this. And there's even been a time that a woman was just like so down and hard on herself that I actually pulled the image into Photoshop and did a very, very quick example of liquefy. And then she was like, oh, okay, guess what? She bought my largest package then, because I gave her a quick visual. I'm a visual person. Like when people try to describe stuff to me, I'm like, don't bother. It doesn't do anything for me. But giving her that one visual reference of how quickly I can change that one thing that she was so hung up on, like immediately changed the whole sales session. And I kid you not, she bought my largest package. So but I agree. It is very important to kind of guide them, because I also early on in my career, and this was though when I was sending out the gallery, it was different when I was sending out the gallery and not talking to them in person, because when I'm sorry, 1 second. I'm so sorry, guys. It is summer and my children are home today. My studio internet is down. I have a meeting tonight to get that repaired. What I was going to say, though, is that when I was sending the galleries out and they were coming back, and then they were giving me, like, they would be like ridiculous. Like, okay, I want you to crop this. And, oh, I can see the leg of your light stand in this image. Like, I'm like, you guys, you know that these weren't edited. Like, you don't have to tell me to crop. Do you see light stands in any of my portfolio?
Right.
So you're right. It can. It absolutely can open up that can of worms if you're not careful.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, okay, let's see. I'm just going to check last time if we have any other. Just had somebody also reiterate that they've also had a similar experience where they took the liberty of doing something and it kind of backfired on them. I think that's really it. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this, Olguta? I know that you have another appointment coming up.
A session at 11. Them that kind of covered it. Ultimately, the last thing I guess to add is that I made a little list of notes. Have it, especially again back to having families on site. If you have a family that is bringing a little one with them, see if they can bring a little one or a dog. Like I get so many of those here. Have them bring a helper with them. And most of the time, like people don't even think of that, or they don't think that they can bring someone to like their session with them. But it's always so much easier when you have someone that can wrangle the little one or wrangle the dog, and you're not there having to like hold a dog leash while trying to like hold your camera steady and take a picture. And it allows them to get more variety. You know, you can get mom and dad together without the little one. You know, I've had to sit there and like hold the baby on one hip while I'm trying to take a picture. And while that can totally be doable, it just, again, allows mom the opportunity to relax when she knows that the little one's taken care of and that they're not like running down the trail, or, you know, that you're not wrestling with the dog while trying to get their photos. So kind of see and think about all the pain points ahead of time and see how you can get those at least like mellow down a little bit. So that way, when it does come time for the session, everything's been covered. You've had the contract and everyone knows what to expect. You've discussed styling and how the dresses are going to fit and you are going to look amazing. Oh gosh, hair and makeup recommendations. I always suggest my moms to get their hair and makeup done. It's such a special time. You're spending a lot of money and you want these photos to look amazing. And that is such a big part of it.
Builds their confidence in the session too. Like 10 out of 10, I see a difference.
It comes through in your images, and it kind of like brings out a whole different vibe. And then, you know, you're taking care of the timeline for them. You're letting them know that this is like the perfect. So when you exude that confidence in yourself and in your business and you tell them like, I got this, like everything from like the contract to the final retouched images. If you need it, any adjustments, I take care of it all. It definitely makes you look like a true business person, and it allows your clients to put that trust in you and trust in spending that money with you. And obviously then you get, more and more referrals because they can confidently tell their friends like, oh my gosh, like Jillian took care of everything from A to Z. I just literally showed up. So anything that you can do to kind of make that process easy for them, like bring them snacks. In my initial contract questionnaire combined, I asked them what their favorite pregnancy cravings are. And,
I love that. That's a great idea.
Like a Coke and Cheez-Its. I'm like, I got those in my cabinet right now, and just putting those in a little gift bag. And, they go to Instagram afterwards and say like, awesome, amazing, session. And I even got snacks, like just little things like that cost you, nothing, but it allows them to have something to kind of immediately share, and it builds that excitement for everything you've done for them.
That's a genius little tip, though. Honestly, Olguta, I never considered that, but like that one little tip, she's absolutely right. That's a talking point. You're already kind of like sly in putting that little nugget in their brain as a talking point to their friends. Like, oh my God, Olguta even had the snacks ready for me. Like not only just snacks, but the ones I love and I'm craving. That's like genius.
Then remember that you asked them this, when they booked 4 months ago. All of a sudden, you're like, wait, how did you know I liked, and it'll be like Mexican spicy candy and something. Sometimes it'll be something very specific. I've had one mom say she wanted like Oreo cheesecake from Cheesecake Factory. So I the heck did bring that in a cooler to the session and showing that.
That's dedication.
Showing that to them. And it cost me like all of $10. But let me tell you, like that mom still talks about it. We've become friends since, and she like still remembers that. So any little impression you can leave on your clients just makes the world of difference.
Absolutely. And I really think that all of these things that Olguta just finished speaking about are very big factors to being able to run a luxury photography business. So if you want to actually be able to succeed in the industry past 5 years, because as you may know, in the 5-year period of starting your business, only 2 out of 10 photographers will still be in business after year 5, meaning that 80% of photographers burn out by year 5. So if you are going to do this for the long haul, you do need to set yourselves up for success. And that includes self-care for yourself and knowing how to price yourself appropriately. You will absolutely. And I speak from experience when I say, if you don't price accordingly, you will burn yourself out. And if you're running a luxury service, you need to give that service to your clients. And I do like having the all-inclusive package for that reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, thank you guys so much for joining us today. And Olguta, thank you. I always, I feel like I always think that we are like such kindred spirits, especially because our workflow is so similar too. I love having you on. Thank you so much, my friend, for joining me.
Absolutely. You guys all have a wonderful afternoon.
Have a great session.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.